today to talk about work-life balance. It seems more relevant than ever because for most of you, your work and life are happening in the same environment. So we have James Hewett today from St. Mark's Behavioral Health Services. He's a licensed marriage and family therapist to give us some tips, and feel free to put in the chat box or unmute yourself and maybe share some obstacles that you are going through as he presents so that we can address them now. To get your 10 points for participating today, there is a link in the chat box to sign in, just your name, email, and EIN so we can get you those points onto your well steps. But I will leave it over to James to kick us off for the day.
All right. Thank you so much, Sadie. It's good to be here with everybody today. Thanks for taking some time out of your day to let me present a little information to you about kind of living a balanced life and how to kind of manage our stress. I mean, that's probably I could probably name my PowerPoint or my presentation about just managing stress, but I think work-life balance kind of sets it up good. See if I can get I like this cup analogy is that, this is where we want to be, right? Nice, calm cup of water. We seem to be able to manage things well. But unfortunately, with a lot of the things that we have happening around us, at work, in our environment, raising a family, whatever the stressors are, we can get pretty overwhelmed, and we can kind of feel like this cup that's overflowing with a lot of things going on. They say with stress that the only person without stress is a dead person. So the reality is that we all experience stress, right? It's just a part of the human existence, I would say. The question is not whether we experience stress or whether we're going to have stress. It's how do we manage it? How do we, stress is not really a bad thing in and of itself, right? Stress is kind of our body's response, our ability to kind of tackle things that are difficult, that are in front of us. And so that stress response can actually be very helpful for us to get things done. I like stress with these two definitions. Number one is stress happens when the pressure is greater than the resource. So essentially it's when there's so much going on around us that our ability to manage that is we're getting overwhelmed. And we've all felt that before, I was recently in a car accident. Luckily I wasn't hurt, but gosh, there was a point there where I was just having to deal with, the tow trucks and the insurances on both sides and doing all this stuff. And I just felt this pressure and this, that I couldn't manage it all at once. And so then I kind of felt some of these, those feelings inside in my head and in my body that I was kind of being knocked out of what I would normally consider my balance. That's another good way to kind of look at stress, is when our body and our mind are knocked out of balance. And we're going to kind of talk a little bit about that later on how do we, realizing when we're out of balance and what we can do to get ourselves back into balance. This part of our system that manages stress, we often call this our flight or fight response. It's actually fight, flight, freeze, or faint. Most people don't say the other two very often, but it's basically when we're faced with a threat or something that's really difficult for us to manage, our body can kind of go into this fight or flight response. And like I was saying before, that can be really helpful. It's really good for helping us fight off like an attacker. It's very helpful for us to avoid danger. And it's very fast. It tends to be, almost instantaneous at times. I mean, if you were walking along a trail or running along a trail and you saw a rattlesnake in the trail, you wouldn't want that response to be slow, right? You want it to be like stop or jump or run around or whatever your body telling you to do in that moment to keep yourself safe, you want that to be really quick. And that's why, when we have this kind of, especially these immediate stress responses, our body kind of utilizes a chemical that many of you have heard of, this cortisol, right? And cortisol is really pretty cool chemical. I mean, it helps utilize the sugars in our body. It helps send blood to our muscles so that we can kind of, again, fight or flight. Um, it actually boosts our immunity response. I mean, there's a lot of really good things that come with cortisol. But we're going to talk about that when we can't turn off that response, then it's a big deal. So it's like I said here, it's helpful if you need to run away, but it's not very helpful if you're at work. Because one of the things that happens with this fight response is that our ability to utilize the higher levels of our thinking brain, like our prefrontal cortex, that tends to get diminished. Maybe it's because I'm a simple-minded guy, but I kind of think of it as if I was being chased by a saber-toothed tiger or a velociraptor or something. If somebody came up to me and said, "Hey James, like, what's your favorite dessert?" or like, "Where do you like to go for fun?" It wouldn't even register, right? Because my brain is in a completely different place than this thinking kind of cognitive part of my brain. It's all about fight or flight. So think about that in regards to being at work. If your stress level is so high because of lots of different things, how can you really focus and do the things you need to do to kind of use that thinking part of your brain? So learning learning ways to kind of manage that stress response so that we can stay in our thinking brain is part of the big reason why I'm speaking to you guys today. So some of the most common ways that stress shows itself is in depression and anxiety. We see that. I mean, those are probably the two most common diagnoses of people that I see come in, say, to the inpatient psychiatric unit. Those are definitely the two most common diagnoses. People get overwhelmed with life, past traumatic situations that have been very difficult to deal with, a lot of different anxieties, social anxieties, anxiety about obviously what's happening in the world. And so, again, we can become so overwhelmed that stress response, they haven't been able to turn that off. And then it leads to, people having thoughts of wanting to harm themselves and such. I would be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about COVID-19, just about the impact that it has had on stress levels of all of us on a certain level. I just listed a few of them here. There's probably more. Grief and loss. I mean, I hope that nobody within the sound of my voice has had somebody die of COVID-19 that they knew of, but my guess is there probably is. And so that is becoming more and more common. I remember I felt like it was a badge of, I don't know if I'd say courage, but when I was in my undergraduate, so this is going to date me a little bit, but I think I'll tell you anyway. See, I was probably in an undergraduate, maybe in 93 or something like that. And I was in a class and a teacher said, and he was talking about suicidal, that it's pretty very uncommon for anybody to not be impacted on some level from somebody who had taken their own life. And I felt pretty privileged that I was one of those very few people that had never really known somebody within my circle of friends and, acquaintances that had taken their life. Well, it wasn't more than about, I don't know, 6 months later that a friend of mine that I knew in high school, I wouldn't say we were super close friends, but definitely a friend that I hung out with at times, had taken his life. So it was pretty uncommon for somebody to not know somebody that has suicided. Um, I feel like that's what's going to be happening with COVID-19. Is it's going to be very rare at some point where people are not impacted by, losing a loved one or losing somebody that they knew because of COVID-19. And so I don't want to discount the grief and loss that a lot of times people feel. It's not just even the loss of life, but it's the grief and loss of maybe things that people used to be able to do that they can't do right now. I guess that goes into some of the others. Disrupted work schedules. Some people are working from home now, which may be good or not, but it's definitely different. It's out of a routine that people are used to being into. Um, Gosh, how often are we being told to not socialize as much, don't get out as much, only go out when you need to. Um, you know, it's funny. I I've gone out a couple of times to just to go pick up some food to bring home, and gosh, there's not a lot of people in the restaurants right now because I think there's just a lot of fear of going out, even to go pick up food in restaurants. So the lines are pretty short. I guess that would be a positive way to look at it, but it's definitely a lot of people are staying in more. There's less physical activity. Um, let's see. Changes in routine, daily structure. Gosh, in-home school. If anybody has young children, you can definitely see the impact that that's had on our kids, right? Their ability to socialize. They get frustrated with having to do all the work online. Um, my wife is a school teacher for elementary school, fourth grade, and so she's right on the front lines of it. And kids are having a struggle with not being able to have that socialization. That's a big part of school, especially at the younger ages, but I think all through high school, people are just having a hard time, especially kids. Um, think about the pressure that it puts on parents too to in home school. Oh, I see my wife and all the time that she spends, and I try to help out, but the time she's helping the kids do work that they would normally do in school, she's having to help them do it, their online homework assignments and such. Like I already mentioned, fear and anxiety, there's a lot of that going on. A substantial decrease in pleasurable activities. Gosh, this one probably impacts all of us, right? I just mentioned dining out, going to movies, going shopping, spending time with loved ones, those kind of things. I'm really close with my in-laws. My wife's parents live very close by, literally 3 minutes from my house. And I have seen my in-laws probably 2 or 3 times in the last 5, 6 months because my mother-in-law is battling cancer, and so they deal with a lot of fear and anxiety about going out, and so they pretty much kind of quarantined themselves to their house because they're just so worried. And I get it, but it's pretty sad. I mean, my kids don't get a chance to see their grandparents very much, and like I said, I enjoy kind of spending time with them as well. Um, yeah, so it's difficult. And a lot of these things that we do, these pleasurable activities, they decrease our stress. It's part of what we built into our routine and structure. So I'm probably preaching to the choir about a lot of these things, but these are definitely increasing our stress levels, and being able to develop and find ways to manage those are going to be huge. Let's see. Oh, I did something. Hold on a second. So how do you experience stress? Just asking yourself, where do you feel stress? Do you feel some tension? A lot of times I hear people say they feel tension in their shoulders, in their back, in their neck, physical aches and pains. One thing that comes with stress often is stomach issues, diarrhea, nausea. I mentioned a little bit, with this when we get that fight, flight, or freeze response, and we get the that chemical in our body that's kind of helping to get us going, if that's left on, then that can lead to actually weakening our immune system rather than strengthening it. So some of the other ones that are really common is we get some racing thoughts, so it's hard to sleep. So there's insomnia. Dry mouth is pretty common. Decrease in sex drive, racing thoughts, forgetfulness. I mean, all these, inability to focus, poor judgment. These can all be sort of symptoms of stress. I've added some of these video clips at the end of my presentation, so you guys I will send out these to you guys so you can have them. So unfortunately, we can't show them on the presentation today because it just doesn't work very well. But this one is this little video clip I really like. It's with Anderson Cooper, and he's doing kind of a talk show with American. Well, he's actually a researcher physician out of Washington. Many of you have probably heard of him, John Gottman. He's just done a ton of research on what it is that makes up healthy relationships, healthy marriages. And I love Gottman. I think it's just really good stuff. It's really helpful for couples. He does this, so he kind of goes over some of the signs and symptoms of healthy relationships. And there's a point in this little video clip where he says that if a relationship is full of contempt, which is a lot of sarcastic humor, put downs, name calling, which is the worst of what he calls the four horsemen. The four horsemen are defensiveness, criticism, contempt, and stonewalling. And the worst of those is this contempt, because it basically conveys that you're disgusted with your partner in the relationship. Well, he's talking to this, as he shares this, he says that he can predict within, I believe he says in the video, I want to say within 2 years, if a relationship is full of contempt, that I don't know if he says both partners, but definitely the woman he can predict that she'll have at least 2 or more health problems. And I'm like, wow. And so even Anderson Cooper, like, well, that's really crazy. And then this lady raises her hand and says, yeah, my husband and I have a lot of contempt in our relationship, and I've been having immune problems, and our immune system has been compromised, and she's dealing with a lot of health issues. And which she, that really rang true to her, that because of all this stress that she feels in her marital relationship, that's really impacted her health. So again, stress isn't really good on a long-term basis on our overall health. Let's see. So let's just go over a couple of those things so that we're all kind of aware. I think awareness and understanding is a very powerful tool to really make sure that we're giving this the amount of attention that it deserves. So unfortunately, work-related stress doesn't always just disappear when you head home for the day. When stress persists, it can take a toll on your health and well-being. Chronic stress can result in a variety of health conditions, such as insomnia, high blood pressure, and a weakened immune system. Stress can also contribute to health conditions such as obesity and heart disease. When you can't turn off the stress response, you're headed for disease. I think if that's one of the big takeaways from this slide that everybody takes away from today is that if I can't turn off the stress response, I'm headed for disease. None of us want that, right? None of us want to have to be dealing with heart conditions or a weakened immune system or high blood pressure or, even high cholesterol. A lot of these things are, connected with high levels of stress. Compounding the problem, people who experience excessive stress often deal with it in unhealthy ways, such as overeating, eating unhealthy foods, smoking cigarettes, or abusing drugs and alcohol. I see this all the time in the hospital too, which is really sad. The drugs and alcohol is rampant. I mean, people, a lot of times people are turning towards, things to numb them because they don't want to feel that stress all the time. Obviously, that comes with a high price, because you're kind of working against yourself in so many ways. It gives you relief in the short term, but in the long term, you're actually creating bigger and bigger problems for yourself. And I think this is so true too. The eating of healthy foods, and I'm to blame just as a lot of other people are. It's easy to turn to sugar. We all like our sweet treats, right? And there's nothing wrong with having those once in a while. But I think obviously when you're eating food to feel better, right? And you're doing those in excess, then again, it's going to lead to other health problems, which again, then we're just creating more stress for ourselves, right? All right. So what's the number one thing we can do? Let's get kind of the treatment part of this, so we can kind of give you guys some skills to kind of help us here. The number one determinant is having a good support system. I would ask you to ask yourself, do I surround myself with people who support me? That is a huge resilience factor on helping us manage stress. Do we have people we can talk to, we can download onto? Do we have good friends, neighbors, family, a spouse? Hopefully we have people in our lives that we can download some of that stress onto, we can talk to, and we can get that support, and people will show empathy and understanding for us. So I can't say enough about that one. That's the number one thing. Now, I have this little graph here. It's called Pillars of a Balanced Life. And what I would really encourage you to do is, when you get a copy of this PowerPoint, just print off this slide. And then what I want you to do is, luckily the directions are really simple, so it's not like you're going to forget how to do this after this presentation. It's very simple. So, and I would encourage you to, have you and your partner take this test together. But what you're going to do is print this out, and then you see on the left side, you've got 1 through 10, and then you have all these different subjects down at the bottom. And I want you to rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10. How well do you think you're doing in all of these areas? So in other words, we're going to go over each of them fairly quickly. Just check my time here. Yeah. So we're going to go over these fairly quickly, but I want to spend a little time on each of these because I think they're really important. So let's start with like financial. So the question basically ask yourself is, how do I feel like I'm doing financially? Do I feel like I can meet my needs? Do I feel like if I need to go buy something, I can? Do I have a little savings account that I'm building? Do I feel like we're working towards, meeting some of our financial goals? Those kind of things. I mean, there's always room. Generally, there's room for improvement. There's always room for improvement, but just kind of how satisfied are you in that area? And then you would rate yourself, okay, yeah, I feel pretty good with where I'm at. I'd give myself a 7 or a 6, or, or maybe it's lower than that. If really finances are not an issue, you have an inheritance from your family and money's just never going to be an issue, then maybe you give yourself a 10. That would be pretty awesome, right? Physical, these are a little bit connected to exercise, but I would say, physical, like, how do you feel like you're doing with, maybe this is more on I do have one on nutrition. So I guess they're similar, so you might just kind of give the same, but physical and exercise, how well do you think you're doing as far as managing incorporating regular exercise into your life. It doesn't have a lot, but that you're getting some physical activity, whether it's going for walks, riding your bike, going to the gym, whatever it is that you do to kind of have some physical activity. And then you give yourself again, and you're just going to write a line right there, kind of wherever the number is, for that. Family, again, how much time do you spend with family? Do you spend time with your kids? Make sure that your family knows that you love them, support them. How important and how invested are you in with your family? Again, giving yourself a level there. And we just learned, right, that kind of one of the number one things that we can do to support ourselves and help us with stress is having a good family support. Same thing with social support. They say that. Go ahead. Do you have a question? Oh, sorry. So they say that along with being having a good family support, the happiest of people. So the people in the top 25% of happiness are rated as having good relationships by themselves and others and have a rich social network. Okay, so I'm going to say that one more time. They are rated as having good relationships by themselves and others and have a rich social network. Those are the people that are in the top 25% of happiness. Okay, so what does that mean? Is that just for extroverts or is that for introverts as well? Well, it's for both, to be honest. The only difference, really, in my estimation, between the extrovert and the introvert is when you go get that social support, when you go hang out with friends and play games or spending time with family, both the extrovert and the introvert are going to be very uplifted and enriched by that experience. The only difference is that for the extrovert, he's going to be energized by that experience and says, basically, when's the next party? That was awesome. Where the introvert is going to be like, okay, I need a little break. I'm going to go to my room. Don't talk to me. I need to decompress. And that would be really the difference. But both people would have their happiness and feelings of connectivity increased by that social experience, in my estimation. So social support's huge. Learning and growth. How much time and energy do you spend learning new things that you feel like you're growing? Whether it's, if you're a therapist, are you learning new ways to help the people you work with? Are you diving into research? Are you reading books? There's just lots of good stuff out there to learn and grow on it. Do you have a hobby? Do you have things that you really enjoyed putting your time and energy in your spare time? One thing that I really enjoy doing, and unfortunately I can't do it right now because all my stuff is in storage while we're renting, but I love pottery. I have my own wheel, I have my own kiln, and I love just making pottery and doing fun things with pottery. I've been doing that since high school. So that's something I can kind of really, learn more about how to fire and pots and glaze things. And so the learning growth, I think, is very undervalued. For some people, it's huge, right? They really pride themselves on learning new things and growing every day. And I think that's a really good skill to have. I'm not going to say too much on neighborhood and environment, but essentially, how do you feel about where you live? Do you feel good about that place? Do you feel you're good about your current circumstances regarding your neighborhood and environment? Play and fun. Again, kind of going back to what we talked a little bit about with COVID, right? Is, how are you doing with incorporating play and fun in your life? Has that really decreased substantially since COVID, or have you found other ways to make sure you get those play and fun needs met? If things have really gone down since COVID-19, then maybe that's an area that you'd only give yourself a 3 or a 4 or something. Um, Pretty common for people that are feeling a lot of stress to not be engaging in things that bring a lot of fun, and they're not doing a lot of really exciting things in their life. Uh, Sometimes what happens with people feel stress is they tend to isolate themselves more, rather than doing the things that would actually help them with their stress and increase their overall level of happiness. Exercise, again, very similar to physical. I won't spend time on that, but how much are you doing that? Sleep is huge. I can't say enough about sleep, guys. I would probably say 60% of the patients that come on an inpatient psychiatric unit are having some level of sleep um, sleep disorder. They're either not getting enough sleep, they're not getting restful sleep, or they're not going to sleep at the right. They're having a hard time getting to sleep, or they're sleeping too much. That can happen too. But getting good, restful sleep is just huge for our bodies and our minds. When we don't get enough sleep, it starts to really impact us in a negative way. So spending the time and energy to really, if you are having issues with sleep, to really figure out what's going on. Do you have sleep apnea? Do you need to get, retrofitted to kind of help make sure that you're getting more restful sleep through a CPAP machine, or I know they even have mouth guards these days, those kind of things. Because if you're not getting good sleep, again, it's just going to impact your stress level is going to be higher. In fact, they found that people that don't get good sleep, it does take its toll on your body over time, and it'll show itself in a lot of um, physical issues like high blood pressure. Um, your immune system will be weakened. I mean, there's just going to be a ton. So, can't say enough about sleep. How do you feel like you do with getting good sleep? We'll talk a little bit more about that at the end here. Nutrition, I already talked a little bit about that. Are you eating healthy foods? Gratitude, gosh, gratitude is awesome. There are probably in the last 15 years or so, it seems like a long time, but it's really not that long when you consider kind of the whole history of psychology and such. But there've been just this growing body of research that shows that people that express and practice gratitude on a regular basis, there's so many positive both health benefits, social benefits. I mean, there's just so many benefits that come with people that are practicing gratitude. They tend to achieve more goals they've had for themselves. They exercise more regularly. They sleep better. In fact, I read one article. It was called "Gratitude versus Ambien." Essentially, the subject was is that people that actually practiced regular gratitude exercises tend to sleep better than people say that were on like an Ambien or something like that. So how do we practice gratitude? Well, I could do a whole workshop on gratitude, which I have, but I'll just tell you the two ways that most of the research is surrounded around. It's basically keeping a gratitude journal. So at least say 3 days or more a week, you would write in your journal a few things that you're grateful for that day. And then you jot those down. And a good time to do that would be like before you go to bed, because they say that, again, when you are writing things that you're grateful for prior to going to sleep, you're sort of prepending your brain to relax and calm itself. And actually, you're going to sleep better. In fact, I always thought it was kind of funny. They actually named them positive pre-sleep cognitions, is what they called them. So that's one way they would do it. And so that's pretty simple, right? We could all keep a gratitude journal. That wouldn't be hard. And then just see if it has an impact or a positive impact on you. The research would show that it would, definitely. The other way that people show gratitude is they would write like a gratitude letter to somebody that has that's had a positive impact in their life, somebody that's really meant a lot to them. So you'd write this letter of gratitude for towards that person, and then you would seek that person out and read them what you wrote, preferably in person, but it doesn't have to be in person. You could do, gosh, nowadays you could do a telehealth, get them on FaceTime or something and read it to them, um, and then share what you read. And that there is some there's a very powerful um, energy that comes with doing that, that boosts not only your own level of happiness, but probably boosts the other person's level of happiness as well. So what I love about gratitude too is not only is it easy to practice, it's easy to do, but it's well, it's easy to incorporate. I guess that would be the biggest thing. Oh, this is what I love about it. So when you the more you do it, the easier it becomes. So the more you're prepending your brain to look for positive things that you're going to be grateful for, you're going to write down in your journal, your brain starts to see things more to be grateful for. How cool is that? So I've heard a lot of people that do this say that, gosh, when initially it was a little bit difficult. I felt like I was saying the same things over and over again. But then the more I did it, then I started writing things down like, hey, I'm really grateful that person took the time to open the door for me, or that person, saw that I dropped this and picked it up for me, and just little things to be grateful for. Huge. So I love gratitude. I think it's very underrated. One thing that's I've had a couple of people tell me, which I thought was awesome, is if you have some kind of meditative or practice, such as maybe prayer, people often will engage in some kind of prayer, right? Well, what do we often do in our prayers? A lot of people say that they're thankful for things, right? So without you even knowing it, you may be benefiting from some of the benefits of being grateful just by having a regular meditative or, engaging in some kind of daily exercise of prayer. So I thought that was pretty cool. Um, and that is one of these next ones. Contribution. Basically, what do you do to contribute to, it's kind of on the service side. Do you contribute? Do you donate things to charity? Do you help a neighbor that's in need? Those kind of things. How well do you think you do as far as helping people out when you have a chance to do so? I think that's there is a pretty cool principle there, that the more you help other people out, I think in a lot of ways you're helping yourself out. In fact, I think it's kind of interesting. This is often a religious principle where you give a certain percentage of your earnings or something, to a charity or to your church or something, or even a lot of churches have kind of a donation kind of situation, right? I always found it interesting that Dave Ramsey, right? A lot of you have probably heard of him. He's kind of a big financial guy, and I don't listen to him that often, to be honest, but I did find it interesting that pretty much one of his principles that he teaches people how to become more wealthy and financially secure is that they do donate 10% of whatever they make to some kind of charity. Isn't that interesting? Because he's learned, I think, like a lot of other people have learned, that when you are helping other people out, you're not only increasing your own wealth, but you're increasing the wealth of others and helping others people out. So I think there is definitely some good things that come with contribution. And lastly, spiritual. Along with what I was saying before about maybe some kind of meditative exercise such as prayer. I think the research is pretty clear that people that invest in their spirituality and or religiosity tend to be happier. They deal with stress better. They deal with divorce better. They just manage things better. Now, why is that? I mean, there's a lot of different ideas of why that is. It's just pretty clear that it is. It does help for sure. Some people would say that part of what happens, and if I'm being honest with you, the research that I've read is more about religiosity than it is spirituality, but I do feel like you can connect them pretty closely together. Um, but some people would say, well, if you're a member of some kind of religious organization, then you're going to have a greater support system, right? You're going to have, you know, get-togethers, and it creates a social network. What did we just learn? Well, we learned that the happiest people are the most social, and the happiest people are the most connected people. Well, could that be part of what's going on when people are religiously connected or spiritually connected? Sure. I think that can be part of it for sure. And then the article that I read mentioned that one of the reasons that they felt, which is his name's Martin Seligman, he's probably one of the fathers of positive psychology, and he said that he felt like it gave people meaning in life and purpose in their life. And I think that is, that makes sense. That if you feel very connected to a higher power or something greater than yourself, I think that could definitely increase your overall level of happiness and obviously decrease your level of stress. Okay, so thanks for bearing with me as we kind of went through those. So you should have lines that, on each of those areas, right? And it should look something like this. Now, I wouldn't ask you to do something if I wasn't willing to do it myself. So I did it. Now, I'm happy to report that I did this probably maybe 6 months ago. And I'm happy to report that my lower areas are a little higher than they were. But optimally, you can create kind of a graph like this. You could color it with colored pencils, or if you want, you just shade it in. Either way, you're going to have a little graph that gives you a visual of areas in your life that you could maybe put a little more energy into, and would, if you did, my I guess one big thing that I'm pushing today is that once you identify a weak area in your life, if you were to put some effort into that area, even if it was just a little bit, that increased level would have a decrease in your level of stress. So there would be this inverse relationship between the two. If I increase myself in just this area a little bit, I will have a decrease in my overall level of stress. So as you can see, I feel pretty good about where I'm at financially. There's always room for improvement. Physical, I obviously, I think I put on, as far as what I looked at this physical was, am I in good health? So fortunately, I feel like I'm in pretty good health, so I don't have a lot of health issues I'm dealing with or anything like that. So that's probably why I gave myself a pretty high level there. But you can see, over here on exercise is probably my lowest area. It just seems like I have a struggle with finding the time or making the time, I guess it'd be a better way of saying it. And then getting out and doing some of those things that I really enjoy doing. But like I said, I probably raised this up to about a 5 now. So I feel better than I did before, but it's still an area of improvement. Family, you can see I did pretty well on family and social support. I'm a pretty outgoing person. Relationships are important to me, so I'll reach out to friends and connect with others, and have a pretty good social network. So I feel those are probably some of my strongest areas here. Learning and growth is an area for improvement. You get so busy with just work and everything, it's maybe hard to spend the time and energy you would like to learning new things. And so this is an area of improvement. And like I told you before, I look at this as one of my hobbies that I enjoy doing, I can't do right now. So it's hard for me to feel super good in this area like I'd like to. So definitely room for improvement there. I feel pretty good about where I'm living, even though I'm renting right now. Play and fun. It's been, I feel like this is an improvement from where I was. I realize this. I teach it all the time, the importance of incorporating things in your life that you really enjoy doing and making sure you do them. I feel like I've made that more of a priority. I'd actually probably even give this maybe a little higher. I'd probably go up at least one more level on that. Sleep, never really had issues with sleep, thank goodness. So this is a strong area for me. Nutrition, there's always room for maybe eating better. Definitely, I like sugar like everybody else. So there's some room for improvement there. Gratitude. I think especially as I teach the importance of gratitude, I try to live being grateful. One thing that I didn't tell you about gratitude, they do say that gratitude is like steroids for couples. So practicing regular gratitude in your relationship, just saying simple things like, hey, thanks for cleaning the kitchen, or thanks for, thinking of me and getting my favorite candy bar on your way home from work. Hey, that really meant a lot to me when you did this. Finding ways to say thank you to our partner, it just infuses so much positivity in the relationship. And in fact, Gottman would say that, we have to, in order for a relationship to stay in a kind of a positive place, there should be 5 positives to every 1 negative. Most of the people that I see in private practice that come in, couples that come in, it's more like probably 10 negatives to 1 positive. So that ratio has definitely gotten way out of whack. So if we can try to really make an effort to be thankful and really see the positives in our partner, that's just going to be huge as far as keeping that relationship in a good place. Contribution, again, I feel like pretty generous as far as what I can do to help. And spirituality, there's room for improvement, but I feel pretty good with where I'm at spiritually and religiously. So hopefully you have a graph like this and you can see some of your areas of improvement, and gosh, put this on your refrigerator or something and say, okay, my goal is I'm going to put a little more effort into this area. Use it as a talking point for your significant other. If your level of play and fun is really low, say, hey, I want to try to make this more of a priority. What can we do within our budget or whatever to engage in more fun, like maybe you love golf and you haven't golfed in like 2 years. Well, maybe obviously winter's here, so it's going to be hard, but just as an example, well, what can you do to kind of maybe try to get out and play a little golf more often? One thing you're going to see, I think it's, I say it later and I'll just say it now, but little changes in you can create big changes in the system. So in other words, if I just make a little effort to be a little, to change the status quo and get myself out of this homeostasis area, which is not very good, that little bit of effort can make a big difference. In fact, I always say that that's therapy 101 to couples. Little changes in you can create big changes in the system. We're not talking about creating just colossal big changes, just little things. So what can some other things that we can do? I don't have a lot of time left, so I'm going to kind of go through these pretty quickly. But there's a lot of research out there about mindfulness, meditation, right? Those kind of things that can be really helpful. Taking a few minutes each day to just focus on a simple activity. So often we get pulled in different directions and we're never really completely, totally engaged in one single activity, such as, your breathing, just sitting down and noticing your breath, noticing your stomach, and when you inhale and exhale, just take a few minutes to breathe. Or when you're eating a meal, just eat the meal. Don't be on your phone. Don't be doing anything but just eating your meal, or going on a walk, those kind of things. The ability to learn how to focus without distraction is a really powerful technique to manage stress. I don't know if I put this on the end of my slide, but there's this really cool, if you want to write this down, it's called Anderson Cooper Mindfulness 60 Minutes, and you can find it on YouTube. Anderson Cooper, Mindfulness 60 Minutes, and it's about a 10-minute video. And Anderson Cooper, he interviews a mindfulness master or guru named John Kabat-Zinn, and kind of talks about what mindfulness is. It's very powerful. And there's a part of the near the end of the little video where they hook Anderson Cooper up with these kind of electrodes that kind of connect to this hat. So these little conduction ports, and so they hook all these electrodes up to this, and essentially what it's doing is it's picking up signals from the area of his brain that kind of can get activated with stress. And so he'd been practicing mindfulness for months at this point. And so they set him down in front of this computer, and it's so cool. The psychiatrist says, okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to think of something that's somewhat stressful and difficult to deal with. So as Anderson Cooper does that, you see on the screen this red line that starts to pop up on the screen. And he goes, whoa, he sees this red line of stress that goes up, and he says, okay, now I just want you to drop into mindfulness. Now, again, he'd been practicing this for a while. It takes time to kind of really get to this point. But he said, I just want you to drop into mindfulness. And you see Anderson Cooper just kind of take a deep breath and kind of go to that calming place in his mind. And you see immediately that line go from red, then there's the baseline, and then it goes to green. And that happened in a snap. And that's really the power of mindfulness, is being able to kind of notice that you're stressed and then kind of use some of these mindfulness techniques to calm your brain and calm your mind. Very cool stuff. And there's so many good resources on the internet to kind of help practice this skill. This is kind of a quick definition of mindfulness: being intentionally aware in the present moment without judgment, the practice of being aware of your body, mind, and feelings in the present moment. Thought to create a feeling of calm. Love that. Being in the present. How often do we do that? I remember kind of what solidified this in my head. Maybe this will help you to kind of understand the power of mindfulness. Is my daughter, she was probably at the time maybe 6, and she came up to me one day, and she had something that she wanted to tell me from school or something. And I remember in that moment, as she's starting to talk to me, I'm listening, but at the same time, the Utah Jazz game had started, and I had my phone in front of me, and I was looking at my phone to see what the score was, or when the game's going to start or something, while she's telling me the story. I mean, I look back at that and I go, I feel almost ashamed to say that, but was I being in the present moment? No. Was I was I really in tune with her, with what was going? No. So my ability, and this has improved over time, is I recognize the importance of being present in a given moment. So when my daughter comes up and says, hey, Dad, can I tell you something? I put what I've got down, put my phone in my pocket, and I try to give her my full and complete and undivided attention. And how long do you think that might be? Guys, we're talking about 2 or 3 minutes max, right? In my head, I think, oh, no, I got, this is going to take forever, and I want to miss this. No. First of all, the most important thing is her, not my phone or the Jazz game, right? And I know that deep down, so why am I not acting that way? But then just how cool is it to be in that and say, yeah, I want to hear what it was that you did. Oh, that is so cool. That is awesome. Tell me more about that, right? That is what builds connection and makes me feel in tune with her. And that's all because I was being mindful in that moment, to be present in that moment. That takes practice, guys. If we don't practice it, we get distracted really easily. Again, this is kind of a good little mnemonic device you'll have. Mindfulness, moment-to-moment attention, being in the here and now, a non-judgmental attitude, detached from unhelpful thoughts, forgive and be grateful. We talked about that. unconditional acceptance, and learn with a childlike mindset. I like that. Um, so I this little video here at the bottom is called, his name is Andy Puddicombe, and essentially he has a little, shows you how to kind of be just a 5 minute, just takes 5 to 10 minutes, and you can do a daily mindfulness practice. So it's really simple. We're not talking about taking lots and lots of time. Listen to our bodies. Um, I think if we really listen to our bodies will tell us what they need. Um, this is, I do believe that our bodies and our minds, for that matter, are set up to heal. It's just that certain things get in the way of them being able to heal. Like, you think about it, like if you have a little cut on your arm or on your finger or something, what does your body do? It takes resources to go and heal that area, right? And within a few days or whatever, it's pretty much gone, right? Well, what if you have a sliver? Well, your body's still going to, it's going to, rally the resources to go and try it and, heal that spot, but it can't, right? Because there's a sliver in there. And the only way that you're going to get healing is to pull that sliver out. And so I think sometimes there are things in our life, even mentally, where we just haven't dealt with those things, and our body or our mind wants to heal through them. And because it can't, that's where we have trauma, like post-traumatic stress and things like that. So if we listen to our bodies, they'll kind of tell us what they need, like, man, I'm feeling sluggish. I'm not feeling, like I have a lot of energy. Oh, it's because I haven't been eating a lot of really energy, really good energy foods. I just keep eating lots of sugar, which is quick energy, but it's not going to be lasting energy. So, or I just feel sluggish. I need to exercise more. I need to get my body moving. We can, if we're listening to our body, it'll tell us what it needs to do. I got 2 minutes. This is that quote that I told you: small changes in you can create significant change in the system. It's just, making a small change can make all the difference. I love this, just kind of as maybe just a wrap up. What can you do to bring greater levels of happiness, which I think it's inversely related to stress? Consistently engage in activities that bring you joy. Obviously, we need to figure out different ways to do that. Maybe right now while COVID is so strong, but we can do that. Engage in work that's meaningful, that you find joy in. This having a good, rich social network, practice gratitude. Those are hopefully things that you'll take away from today. This is another big one: change perspective. Just essentially all I wanted to say on this one is set boundaries when you need to. Don't take on things that you can't, that you're doing because of, of guilt or shame or anything. Just, it's okay to say no. It's okay to set boundaries. Accept chaos, radical acceptance. I mean, there's a lot of changes here, but the reality is that some of these changes could really be open us up to some real positives, like spending more time with our family and finding out other things that we can do to increase our overall level of happiness, that maybe we would not have explored if everything was the same. So the positive perspective, positive psychology, learning how to kind of fight our negativity is huge. So lastly, on the cup conclusion, obviously that's where we want to be, right? We want to kind of be in a pretty calm, serene place. We're not going to always be there, but if we can get there when we know we're stressed, that makes all the difference. So that's my presentation, guys. I really appreciate everybody taking the time to listen to me. Hopefully it took a few things that you can take with you home.
Thank you so much, James. Does anybody have any last minute questions?
Everybody's stumped, I guess. No, I
Well,
appreciate it. Thanks for the thank yous. I appreciate that.
Yes, and thank you so much. It looks like we'll be having you come again in December to talk about seasonal affective disorder and coping with um, the holiday stress.
All right, I'll see what I can muster up for that. I'm excited.
We are too. Thank you very much. And everyone enjoy the rest of your day.
Take care, guys. Bye bye.